I want to use my 10 minutes to talk up this country, a merchant and maritime nation, connected by language and law, by kinship and custom, by habit and history to every continent and archipelago. If we can't make a success of living under our own laws, trading with our friends and allies in Europe, but governing ourselves, who the hell can? We are the 5th largest economy in the world. We have the 4th military budget on the planet. We're one of 5 permanent seat holders on the UN Security Council, a leading member of the G7 and the G20, of NATO and the Commonwealth. We're sitting here in the world's capital city, a great, bold, spirited, multiracial entrepot, enriched by the ambition and energy of people who have come here from every corner of the planet to bring their talents to London. Our language is the most widely learned by the human race. How much bigger do we have to be before we're able to govern ourselves, trading with our friends in Europe? As Boris Johnson points out, I think he was nicking the line from me, we are on the only continent growing more slowly than this one is Antarctica. And I have to tell you, that's no place for a country like ours. You know, we don't sit on great natural resources in this green, damp, exquisite island of ours. We have to make our way in the world by what we buy and sell. That means we have to be where the customers are. But as long as we're in the European Union, Brussels controls our trade policy. We have no free trade agreement with India. 9 years the EU has been talking about a free trade agreement with India and failing to sign it. Is there a country in this part of the world that stands to gain more from unrestricted commerce with that rising giant than ours? India is English-speaking, certainly for business purposes. It's common law. It's the 3rd largest investor here. Owns more here than in the rest of the EU put together, Jaguar, Tetley's and so on. We're the 3rd largest investor in India. There are 1.4 million Brits of Indian origin, but we can't sign a free trade agreement with India because Italian textile workers and French farmers and so on don't want the competition. Now, in fairness, we did today get a new argument from the Remain side. It came from the former Foreign Secretary William Hague in his Telegraph column, where he said, we could stay in and reform it. What the devil does he think we've been trying to do for the last 40 years, right? That is the policy that any British government, Labour or Conservative, actually even since before we joined, right back to Macmillan's time when we made the first application, they'd have all said, yeah, we want to get in there, get stuck in, make our case, build alliances, and then make it a more democratic, more open system, friendlier to the Commonwealth, more power devolved, not a federation. How's that working out? I mean, on what metric have we advanced that goal? With 40 years of getting it, the getting in there and making concessions bit, that's gone pretty well. But then, turning the EU in a different direction, it is by any possible measure, we're further from that goal than we've ever been. And if there was any doubt in your minds, surely it must have been dispelled by the recent experience of the renegotiation. Just think about that. David Cameron spent 2 years crisscrossing the continent, asking for a fundamental overhaul. The other member states knew that there was going to be a referendum at the end of it. And yet, what did he come back with? Not one power returned, not one penny off the contributions, not even a new treaty. All of that process ended up producing an amendment to one directive about benefits claims by EU nationals. That's how intractable the European Union has shown itself to be. That's how unable or unwilling to reform. And so just ask yourselves this one question. If that is how the EU treats us now, their 2nd largest financial contributor, before we have our vote on whether to leave, how will they treat us the day after we vote to remain? Please understand that voting to stay in is not the same as voting to stay put. Voting to stay in means acquiescing in everything that is coming our way. the assimilation that is now planned in the military sphere, the political sphere, the economic sphere. We can see the twin crises in the Eurozone and the Schengen area unfolding before our eyes. And we know that the European Union is responding to both of those crises in the way that it responds to everything, by demanding more powers for Brussels. And the question that we face on the 23rd of June is, are we going to make those problems our problems? You see, we do have other options. Because we kept the pound, because we kept our passport checks, we do have an alternative. We can reorient away from the enervated, declining, collapsing Eurozone back towards the rest of the world, not least our natural hinterland in the English-speaking common law countries. But don't imagine that there is an option on the ballot paper that allows us to stay where we are. The status quo is not on offer. Being a nation means that we have a duty to keep intact the freedoms that we were lucky enough to inherit from our parents and pass them on securely to the next generation. My late father was prepared in 1944 to volunteer to defend with force of arms our right to live under our own laws and our own people in our own sovereign parliament. I don't want his grandchildren to lose that portion of their inheritance. My elder daughter is reading all the war poets at the moment. She was reading a poem which I'd never come across before by Siegfried Sassoon, which takes the form of a letter in verse to Robert Graves. And there's a wonderful moment where he looks up from the hellishness of the trenches to a flare, and his eye is drawn up by the illumination, and he dreams on better things. And there's a beautiful line. He says, "For I know dreams will triumph, though the dark scowls above me where I go." My friends, this is about self-confidence. It's about self-belief. It's about whether we think we're good enough to flourish in the world, taking our own decisions. Look around you. This is the greatest metropolis on the planet. There's never been a better time to be alive and in London than now. And look a little bit further. This is a blessed country, never more so than in this season, thick and rank and green with May, the larks and the linnets singing in the high places, the season pulsing around us. Our story is not yet told. We still have more to give. And when you go to vote on the 23rd, do it in the knowledge that this is a great country whose song is not yet sung. For I know dreams will triumph.